Hello everyone, we are continuing with this video with the overview of the previous classes. We are going to start with the concept of competitive advantages in the class 4. If you see the picture of the business environment, you can see the company at the center of the circle, and we are starting in class 4 speaking about the company itself. And we are starting by the concept of competitive advantage. Competitive advantage is a very important concept of strategic management. It's very important that you understand the concept. We are going to speak about competitive advantage all across the course. And in order to speak about competitive advantage, it's necessary to start by speaking about the strategic capabilities of companies. We can define strategic capability as the resources and competences of a company needed for it to survive and prosper. As you can see in this image, we can divide strategic capabilities between resources and competences. Resources is more what we have, physical assets, for example, machine, buildings, raw materials, products, patents, and so on. And competences is more what do we well. For example, ways of achieving utilization of plants, efficiency, productivity, and so on. And therefore, it's necessary to understand what the company has, what resources and what competencies the company has, and if those resources and competencies may become a competitive advantage. And when we speak about strategic capabilities, about resources and competences on companies, those could be tangible and intangible and human. For example, if we speak about tangible resources, we refer to physical assets as the buildings, the plant, the equipment, and so on, or financial assets as cash, securities, borrowing capacity, etc. And when we speak about intangible resources, we speak about patents, copyright, reputation, the brands, relationships, culture, etc. And the last kind of resources could be human, the skills of the staff, the know-how, capacity for communication and collaboration, the motivation of the staff. For example, it's very usual that the biggest asset of a consultory company, companies in which the brain power is very important, is the staff. The know-how of the people is the most important value of such kind of companies. Here you can find a very important example of intangible resources, which are brands. For example, you have to be able to be aware that that the world's most valuable brands worth millions. You have to think, for example, on Apple, 205 billion, Google, 167 billion, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, and so on. And you have to be aware that the worth of such brands are changing with years. As you can see in the image, is not the same. They are not the same brands in 2006, 2012, or 2017. I really recommend you to visit, if you have time, the Brand Museum. It's a United Kingdom museum, and you can visit the online resources. Of course, it's shut down for the lockdown, but in the online resources, you can find a lot of interesting things related to brands. And starting with those resources and competences, starting with those strategic capabilities of companies, we can design a strategy, and therefore, if that strategy is success and it's persistent over the time, we can achieve, as we call in strategic management, a competitive advantage. It's a very important concept, and it could be defined as anything that a company does especially well compared to its rivals firms, or when a company can do something that rivals cannot do it, or own something that rivals desire, that can represent a competitive advantage. At the end, strategic management is all about gaining and maintaining such competitive advantage. However, if you remember the metaphor used by Warren Buffett when speaking about competitive advantage, our competitive advantage is going to be like a castle, and our rivals companies are going to try to conquer our castle, so are going to try to copy our competitive advantage as quick as possible. So it's not enough to have a competitive advantage. We have to try to obtain a sustainable competitive advantage, a durable competitive advantage. And the durability of a company's competitive advantage over its competitors depends on several factors. For example, it depends on the industry dynamism. This is the ability of an industry to change rapidly. It depends on the capacity of competitors. It's not the same to compete against big brands or about medium and small companies. And the most important factor, the barriers to imitation. We have to make it difficult to copy our competitive advantage, and a lot of times we can achieve such difficult because our distinctive competences. We have to design a process so that we are going to be the only ones able to do such competitive advantage, and therefore we are going to achieve a sustainable competitive advantage, a durable competitive advantage. And finally, if you remember, the sustainable competitive advantage brings us to the last concept, the core competences, which could be defined as a company defining strength, providing the foundation from which the business will grow, seize upon new opportunities, and deliver value to its customers. The distinctive competence of a company is what it does well or better than its rivals. If you remember, we explained the process through this image, starting with strategic capabilities. This is the resources and competences of one concrete company. We can design a strategy, and if this strategy is well executed, of course, we are going to achieve a competitive advantage. But it's not enough having a competitive advantage because our rivals are going to copy them immediately. So we have to try to achieve a sustainable competitive advantage. And if we persist over time with that sustainable competitive advantage, we are going to achieve the core competences of the company. Therefore, maybe the key question is if our competitive advantage are going to become a sustainable competitive advantage. And for that purpose, we studied the VRIO Analysis, or the VRIO framework, which is a very important tool in strategic management used to analyze the company's internal resources and capabilities to find out if they can be a source of sustainable competitive advantage. And if you remember, to perform a VRIO analysis, we have to start by analyzing the 4 factors of the VRIO framework: value, rarity, inimitability of the competitive advantage, and organizational support. In order to perform such VRIO analysis, we have to wonder 4 questions related with value. For example, our competitive advantage is valued by our customers and enable the company to respond to environmental opportunities or threats. Related with rarity, is our competitive advantage unique or other competitors already have such competitive advantage? Is our competitive advantage inimitable? In this case, we have to wonder if our competitive advantage is costly to copy or is difficult to obtain for our competitors. And when we speak about organizational support, we have to wonder if our company is appropriately organized to exploit such capabilities. As you know, the 4 factors have to be together so that we can have a sustainable competitive advantage, a durable competitive advantage. And if we do not have any of those 4 factors, we are not going to have a sustainable competitive advantage. What will happen, for example, if our competitive advantage is not valuable? In that case, we do not have a competitive advantage, we have a competitive disadvantage. What will happen if we have a valuable competitive advantage, but it's not rare? In that case, we will have a competitive parity because other competitors already have the same competitive advantage. What will happen if we have a valuable competitive advantage and a rare competitive advantage, but it's not difficult to imitate? In this case, our competitors are going to copy our competitive advantage in a very short period of time, so we just are going to have a temporary competitive advantage. So it's necessary to have the 4 factors: valuable competitive advantage, rare competitive advantage, difficult to imitate, and a company well organized, so that we can obtain a sustainable competitive advantage, a durable competitive advantage. And if you remember, we finished class 4 by speaking about the SWOT analysis. If you can see the circle, we finished the class 4, continue speaking about the company itself, not the environment, by the company. And once we have determined our competitive advantages, and we can perform a SWOT analysis of the company. SWOT analysis is a very important tool in strategic management for analyzing business, its resources, and its environment. And it's divided into strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. As you may see, there are internal factors as strengths and weaknesses, and external factors, opportunities, and threats. And here you can find an example of the things that a SWOT analysis may contain. Okay, of course, is it not a closed list? The list is completely open, and it's going to depend on the company itself and in the industry or the sector in which such company is located, and in the macro environment, the company, the country, or the region in which such company is located. As you may see in this example of SWOT analysis, you are gonna have strengths, advantages, capabilities, resources, weaknesses, lack of competitive strength, financials, threats, the market demand, the obstacles, or opportunities, the market development, business and product development, and so on. And as you already know, there are internal aspects as strengths and weaknesses, external aspects as opportunities and threats, and positive aspects will be strengths and opportunities, and negative aspects, weaknesses and threats. If you remember, we started class 5 by speaking about the organizational structure of companies. Of course, every company has its own hierarchy, its own organizational structure, but we are going to outline here the main 5 traditional models of the organizational structure. First of all, we spoke about the traditional hierarchy. This is the most typical model, and it was quickly adopted by the military as a way to show a chain of command. And of course, a lot of companies still have this traditional hierarchy model as its organizational structure. I would say that it makes sense for linear work, but no in those companies in which brain power is required. Then we had the flatter organizations, in which there are structures, more open structures, and several lines of communication and collaboration. And I would say that this is the model in which all companies are trying to achieve. Then we have flat organizations, in which there are usually no jobs, seniority, managers, or executives, and it's more usual in smaller and medium-sized companies. Then we have the flatteries, which is located in between hierarchies and flat organizations. And then finally we have the holocratic organization, also known as bossless companies, and as you have commented in the discussions, is not a very useful organizational structure. As you remember, Steve Jobs said that the way in which Apple were organized is a flatter organization. Okay, so I would say that is the model that every company is trying to go, is trying to achieve during this 21st century. Continuing with class 5, if you remember, we spoke about the family businesses. If you remember, they represent more or less 70% of the GNP, so it is a very, very important matter. And we spoke about the ELISA family values, which ELISA is an acronym of those words: excellence, labor ethic, initiative, simplicity, and austerity. So they are the main 5 values that you have to take in account that usually are presented in all family businesses. And we finish class 5, and we are finishing this overview class by speaking about the Porter's value chain, which is, as you remember, is a set of activities that a company carries out to create value for its customers. The idea is that organizational processes and routines form the essence of capabilities. We are going to analyze a value chain on the next slide. Here you have a value chain. As you see the value chain, there are primary activities and support activities. And as primary activities, we can find the inbound logistics, operation, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, and service. And related with the support activities, we can find the company's infrastructure, human resource management, technology development. If you can see here, you have a link of a short documentary of Zara Inditex. It's a main of the biggest textile groups in the world. It's a Spanish company. And you can see a very interesting documentary about the value chain on Zara. I really encourage you to see. We are going to have several discussions and several quizzes on this class related with this documentary. So I really encourage you to see the documentary of the Zara value chain. Here you can see an image of the Zara value chain, which is divided into design, source and manufacturing, distribution, and retailing. And thank you very much. I really hope that this overview class would be helpful for you. I really prefer that you understand all concepts rather than study the previous presentations. I really prefer that you interiorize all concepts, and if you have any query or doubt, please do not hesitate to contact me. I'll see you on the next video. Thank you, students.